Welcome, everyone. It's so great to see you. We're so excited to be back in our office. So we had our entire team here today. We were cleaning out. We have a lot of construction going on because I have a brand new studio that's being built in our office. So we are super excited. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for the book gathering with Dori. And I have with me here Tara. And we're still doing the distancing. We had everybody wearing masks today, but it was so nice to see everyone come back into the office and get to catch up. Yeah, we had pizza for lunch. Well, I didn't eat, but the rest. Me. We don't eat lunches. We're on the Dori diet. We don't eat breakfast. We don't eat lunch. We eat one meal a day. So anyway, we are going to go over Think and Grow Rich today. I'm so excited because this book, I told you last week, it truly changed my life. And I know that it's going to change yours as well. There is so much great content here. So even though Napoleon Hill wrote this back in, it got published actually in 1937. So how many years is that? 80 some years ago. Can you imagine? But you know what's amazing about it is that it's such a classic that the principles that applied back then still apply today. And that's why I love this book so much, that it is timeless. Literally, it's timeless. Now, there are several versions of this book, and I think I have every single one of them. So you have this one that's like a nice hardcover. You find this at Barnes & Noble. I have my nice deluxe version that Tara says looks like a Bible. It almost is a Bible. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you, I don't know if you know this, but Think and Grow Rich, the Bible, of course, is the #1 book ever, right? But Think and Grow Rich is actually like number 7 or 8 that's ever been published. Could you imagine having a book that's like the number 7 or 8, I think, book in the world? And that's why
it's in like every language, right?
It is in every language, and it's just amazing, the reach. Now, the one we're using is this particular one, Think and Grow Rich, and it is for the 21st century. And it was actually rewritten, or he modified it a little bit, and he added some of the new comparison of some of the wealthiest people on the planet. So Dr. Pell, Arthur Pell, actually revisited the whole book and kind of modernized it a little bit. So that's why I wanted you to actually get this version of the Think and Grow Rich. But it doesn't really matter. If you didn't get this version, no worries. We're still going to go through the book, and we're going to go over the different parts of it. So I'm just very happy that you're here. So please go ahead and reach out, chat. If you're on Facebook or Instagram or Zoom, please tell us that you're with us today, your name, where you're from. And this is really meant to be in a way where you get engaged and you tell us some of these experiences that you've had maybe as we go through these principles. Now, the first one we're going to talk about today is thoughts are things. Thoughts are the most important things on what actually goes through our head. But the thing to really remember about Think and Grow Rich is that the more you practice it, the better off you're going to be. It's not a book that you just read. You have to live it. And I remember the first time I read it, I was 19 years old the first time I read Think and Grow Rich. And frankly, I didn't quite grasp it the first time I read it, because no one really set it up for me in a way to where, okay, you need to sit and practice these things. You can't just read it. Think and Grow Rich is not a book that you just read. You have to really practice. As a matter of fact, at the end of our time together today, I am going to give you some homework of things that you need to do to make sure that we are practicing these principles that are so essential to really changing your life and truly find riches. And I don't mean just financial riches, right? It's riches really all the way around, and it really makes a big difference when you look at it that way. So just a little bit about the author, a little bit about Napoleon Hill. So he was born to a very poor family. He was extremely poor. They lived in Virginia in like the little hick town. He was born in 1883, and he was orphaned. Actually, he lost his parents at the age of 12. So he was forced to go to work at the age of 13.
Wow.
So imagine a 13-year-old kid going to work, and his first job was at a newspaper. So he started writing, and he was getting paid basically pennies per line. So he wasn't making a lot of money. So then he found a way to get his way through college. And when he went to college, he had an assignment to do. And one of the assignments was to go and interview some people. So he decided to go and interview Andrew Carnegie. There are so many Carnegies. There is a Dale Carnegie too, but this was Andrew Carnegie. He was the mill guy. He was so wealthy. He actually sold all the rail for all the train right. Rail for the entire country. So needless to say, he was very wealthy. So when Napoleon Hill went to his office, they said, he started talking to him, and Andrew Carnegie basically told him, I want you to go and interview the wealthiest men around. He wanted him to interview 500 of the most successful people on the planet, right? So Napoleon Hill took him up on this challenge, and it took him 20 years to actually come up with these principles. 20
Wow.
years. But the reason it took so long is because they were testing every single one of those principles, right? And that's why it's so effective, because during that period, not only did he go and interview all the wealthy people and what made them wealthy, but they also wanted to know why some people don't succeed. So it's not just the people that are wealthy, but there's a lot of poor people that are not reaching success. And that's really why Andrew Carnegie wanted Napoleon Hill to actually do this task, this experiment.
I mean, this is a big task.
Yeah, experiment. So they decided, okay, we're gonna go start interviewing all these people, and we're gonna start coming up with the principles, because Carnegie truly felt that he wants to share this principle, the truth, what separates failure from success. And he wanted to share this with as many people as possible. And that's really why Carnegie, he wanted everybody to be wealthy. And that's why he basically told him to go and do this. Now picture this for a minute. And the reason I wanted to start telling you this story is, could you imagine right now, if you went into someone's business and they told you, okay, you know what, I have an idea for you. Go do this, 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 and that, but you know what, I'm not gonna pay you. Like, what would you be thinking? Because Napoleon Hill did not get paid for this job.
Wow.
So just imagine, what would you say to someone if they told you, yeah, go do this for 20 years and I'm not gonna pay you. But he saw, what happened with Napoleon Hill is he saw the opportunity that he had by actually going out and mixing with all these wealthy people. And in return, he became wealthy. And that's how the Think and Grow Rich book became about. So he went on and interviewed everybody, and the principles that he came up with are all principles from actually that. So pretty cool beginning, right? Isn't that something? It is, it really is. So I hope that you guys have read this already. And there are 15 chapters in this. And today, as I mentioned, we're going over, of course, chapter 1. And we're going to be meeting up every Friday at 2 p.m. like we've been doing. As you know, we've already finished my book, How to Make Millions with Your Medical Spa. If you missed some of these parts that we did for my book, you can go to either inspirationmanagement.com and you get to watch them all if you like. or you can go to Global MedSpa Association and be able to also watch them. So either way. So let me just share with you a little bit how to participate in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want you to chime in. We want you to speak with us and tell us what's on your mind as we go through this information. I want you to grab a nice notebook, or if you don't have it now, you should go out and buy one. And that notebook should be your Think and Grow Rich notebook. Just like I hope you did one for my book. You should have a notebook for How to Make Millions. You should have a notebook for Think and Grow Rich. And that way you have all your notes. Grab your favorite pen that you want to write with. And you need, because I'm telling you, this book, you've got to write. You have to take things from up here to put them on paper. And if you don't do that, I'm telling you right now, you are not going to get the benefit of Think and Grow Rich.
Or highlight. The book you let me borrow to read, I could tell
It's
you
all
read
highlighted.
it. It's highlights, underlines. I was like, oh, Dori got a hold of this one.
I always do.
You
Actually,
do.
when you open up my books, there's always lines and sticky notes and things that that's how I learn. I love marking my books. Now my son is totally the opposite. Like I borrow some of his books sometimes because we like to read some of the same stuff, like some of the same mindset stuff. He's like, don't you dare write in my book. Because he knows how I am.
Yeah.
So he doesn't like anything in his books. Where my books,
I mean, as soon as I opened it, I knew. And like the pieces that you highlighted and underlined, like I made sure I read them a couple of times. I'm like, there's a reason why she underlined or highlighted this. Like, keep reading it.
Yeah.
It'll come.
And you guys, just so you know, Tara had never read Think and Grow
Haven't.
Rich. Shame on her. No.
Yes.
Can you believe she's been around me all these years and never read it?
Yeah.
Where have you been?
I don't know. I don't know why it's. Yeah, so I'm actually really excited about it. I can't wait to find the secrets that they mention is in every chapter. I'm
That's
like,
right.
I'm going to find these secrets. So
That's
I'm
right.
on a mission.
You're ready. All right, so get your notebook, get your pen, and then you have to make a commitment to really reading each chapter, because us going through it is going to really help you digest it. I think it'll be very important. So don't just show up without really reading the chapters. But if you do, I mean, it's okay, but it would be much better if you do read it for sure. All right, so as we're going through these principles, I want you to really be thinking and writing, what are some of my takeaways from this? What aha moments did I have? How can I improve? How can I change? How can I apply this way of thinking into my daily life? And as we go through that, if you truly highlight these important things, then you're going to be able to gain a lot more out of it, which is very true. Now, everything that we do has a price. So the price here is you applying, you taking the time to read, study, learn, and apply. And when you do that, you're going to get a lot more out of it.
I can't wait to, I mean, like you said, I'm a little behind, and you read it your first time at 19, so I'm really behind on my age, but
It's
I
okay.
can't wait for you.
We forgive you. All right, so let's start with chapter 1. Again, if you're with us live, please send us some comments or questions as we go through this. So chapter 1 is all about the power of thoughts. And I have to say, really, that's a very important thing for us to focus on, because the way we think is what we end up doing. So what we think is what we become. And we have to really control what we actually think about, because if we don't, then stinking thinking,
Yes,
you know, as
true.
I call it, will start creeping into our minds, and then they take over, and that's when you actually get in trouble and not do so well. So the first phrase in that chapter, I'm just going to read it for you. So thoughts are things when mixed with, those are my 3 favorite words, by the way, purpose, persistence, and burning desire. Now, the next chapter is going to be about desire. So we're not going to dive into too much about burning desire, because we're going to go into it in depth. But this is a good way to kind of give you an overview. And all these are a translation into riches. or other material objects. So the story, he tells few stories in this chapter. And one of the most important thing though is that the desire was the definite with the first story that he tells. And the first story is about a guy that was so broke, he was totally penniless, he had no money, and he had this vision that he wanted to work with Thomas Edison, right? It's like, imagine this, you're waking up one day and you all of a sudden you're like, I want to go and work with Thomas Edison.
Perfect.
Now you don't have a penny to your name,
right?
You have no money. You don't even have enough money to take a train or an airline or drive a car to go meet Thomas Edison. But yeah, that burning desire, that definiteness of purpose that he had in his mind drove him to take a freight train. He probably
like
just
he
probably just what do you call it? Hop the train?
Yeah, he hopped the train.
He hopped the train and he found his way to go to visit Thomas Edison. So he knocks on his door, he walks in and he says, Mr. Edison, I want to go into business with you. Not I want to work for you. He was so purposeful with his visit that he said, I want to go into business with you. Wow. So imagine having that vision of wanting to go right now, because we're talking about a person like maybe going to Bill Gates or going to Jeff Bezos from Amazon and saying, I want to go in partnership with you.
He'll probably laugh at you.
But Thomas Edison saw something in him that day. He says in the book that he had that look in his eyes. He had that face of definiteness of what he wanted, that Thomas, of course, just Edison started talking to him. Well, so he hung out for a little bit, and how he made his vision a reality, or his definiteness of purpose a reality, is that Edison at that time had created a dictation machine, right? Some young people probably don't even know what that is. What the heck is a dictation? Do you know what a dictation machine is? She does. So, but he was failing miserably with that dictation machine. They were not selling at all. So I forget what his name was. So he decided, okay, I'm going to help you sell that machine. And his drive caused him to succeed selling that machine. And he ended up making more money than he can ever imagine.
Just from drive.
Just from drive, definiteness of purpose, and being persistent.
True.
All these three things. So purpose, you need to be writing these down or highlighting them in your book, whichever way. So it's purpose, persistence, and burning desire that got him to actually go into business with actually Thomas Edison. I think that's just amazing that he was able to do it. And what Napoleon Hill says is that he thought himself into a fortune. He had nothing to start except the capacity to know what he wanted and the determination to stand by the desire that he had until he realized it. That's very powerful. Could you imagine setting your mind to something like that and then actually making it a reality? Making it a reality.
Especially at such a young age too.
Yeah. So I want to do a little discussion here. So I hope that you again reach in. So I want to ask you a few things. What opportunities do you have right now that you could be tapping into that you might be putting off? What purpose drives you to maybe you want to meet someone like this that can help you with your business? Or you might be thinking of a new relationship that you want to have. What are some of the things that are going through your mind, the opportunities that you have that you could tap into right now? So this will be a good question to ask yourself, because sometimes we don't think about that. Like, what can I do today to help me succeed even more than what I am right now? What are some of those things? Then the other thing he talks about briefly so far is the word impossible. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more when we go over the story with Henry Ford and how persistent he was. The word impossible needs to just disappear from your language. You need to take the I am, erase it, and keep the possible, because anything is possible if you put your mind to it. And that's what's so beautiful about this. And you know what's funny is, remember the book The Secret, when it became so famous and people were just going crazy over it, maybe about what, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago. But The Secret was nothing but Think and Grow Rich. They just took all the ideas from here and they recreated The Secret, the book. So anything is possible that you can do. And they made millions and millions of dollars off The Secret book, and it wasn't even theirs. It was just recycling, recycling Napoleon Hill's work. So, but anyway. And the other thing I want you to be thinking about is, what business to business relations can you actually do that will bring more prosperity to your business? That's the other thing that I really want you to think about and be able to realize some of these things. And ask yourself, what is it that you really want, right? So I spoke to you during my book that I sat down one day and I wrote down a list of all the things that make me happy. When was the last time you did something like that? You really should take the time and find out what truly makes you happy. And when you do that, you're going to be a lot better off.
So a couple of people are commenting on Instagram and Facebook, so I'm going to go read their comments.
All right, sounds good. So while you're doing that, I'm going to share actually how I took some of these things and actually put it into reality because of determination and persistence. So most of you know that I started my first career in the hospitality industry. So I worked my way up from entry level right out of school, and I started working my way up, and I kept getting a promotion after promotion after promotion until I became vice president. And I just have to tell you, the reason I became a vice president and was in charge of hundreds of people, and my resort was generating millions, $50–60 million a year, right, in sales and in revenue. And the reason I was able to climb up, now of course I'm always practicing, Think and Grow Rich. I'm practicing persistence. I'm practicing the right thought process. So that the one key thing that I want to share with you that allowed me to climb that corporate ladder as fast as I did. I mean, I was in management by my early 20s. I was already leading a team, and then I became a director, then I became the VIP director, then I became the vice president. But I have to tell you that every job that I got promoted into, Tara's about to drop the whole thing. So every job that I got, I actually did the job before I got it. So let's say I wanted to become a manager. So I went ahead and started doing all those things that a manager needed to do before I actually got the title. So that was my thought process back then. It wasn't like, oh, I don't want to do this, I'm not going to get paid for it. As a matter of fact, yours truly, who's sitting next to me, did the same thing. So when Tara first came to work with me, by the way, I had to really be persistent. Talking about persistence, I really had to be persistent for her to come to work with me. But how I met Tara, we might as well tell you a little story here. So my mom, when she was getting a little bit older and she needed help, and that's why I moved to Daytona, is to help take care of my parents as they were getting older. And I was looking for someone really good because my parents are very important to me, and I really wanted to find the best person for the job during the day because I was at work. I couldn't leave them alone. I wanted someone to go and take care of them. And that's how I actually met Tara. She came and she would go to my parents' house every single day. She would take great care of them. And then I would come home at night And, you know, I got to know her and what kind of person she is. I would go to Orlando on the weekends because I still had a life in Orlando. And every once in a while, my parents would call in the middle, like in the middle of the night. My dad would call me, oh, mom fell and she can't get up. And I'm telling you, this is the kind of person she is. So I would call Tara in the middle of the night because she lived close to my parents. Please, my mom is on the floor. Can you please go get her? Oh, no problem. I'll be right there. And she would just go. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this girl is really, really good. So needless to say, years passed by. I got to know her really well. She's like my little sister, or she could be my daughter. But when my parents passed away, I tried to get her to come and work with us. So, you know, she hemmed and hawed. She didn't actually come right away, but finally she did. And she started by just doing some social media for me, just, you know, posting here and there. And before I knew it, she was taking on all these responsibilities without me ever asking. And the more she did, I think you are probably the one person I have given more raises to than every, like she was getting a raise like, like every other month she was getting an increase because I kept seeing that drive in her. We're talking about burning desire. This is a perfect story for you guys. So both of us, it just goes to show you that when you're driven, when you're persistent, when you have a purpose that you want to do a great job and you do the job, then your leaders, people will recognize that you are doing that job and then you get the job. But then you have a lot of people that do this. Well, I'm not going to get paid for this. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, am I going to get paid? And we get this all the time from clients, right? Telling us, oh, my team doesn't want to come to training because they don't think they're going to get paid, or they don't want to go the extra mile, or this or that. Not a good idea. If you want to move far in life, whether you are a team player watching us today, whether you are a leader, maybe a manager, it does not matter. I want you to be truly purposeful with why you're doing what you're doing right now. Why do you have this job? And if you're not doing what we just talked about, maybe it's the wrong position for you. But if you feel that it's a pleasure to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, how did you feel about being here at first and how you started doing? Like, what drove you to do that?
I don't know. I guess I've always been a person like where you say pick up hats and kind of see and notice that no one is fulfilling a job that needed to be completed. And I'm a person, I like to make sure that whoever my boss is I'm fulfilling a need to help them. And that's where it's not a job to me. It's a career, and it's something that I actually have purpose to have. And if I don't have purpose, it means nothing anymore. Exactly. I mean, every job I've ever done, like even when I took care of your parents, I had a purpose. So as long as I have a purpose when I'm fulfilling something, then I'm happy with that. And I don't just stop. I mean, I could have just done the social media, but I don't. Right. Like I never stop. Yeah. I mean, but I mean, sometimes it, like you say, delegation. That's my next task is learning to delegate because
because you take on so much. I do,
and it's very hard to delegate, but that'll be a task I can accomplish.
So what I want you to do, this is part of your homework, by the way, so you might want to write this down. So I want you to do is I want you to think back on your own life and point out a time when you had burning desire, when you knew exactly what your purpose was. Or it might be now, I don't know. But I really want you to go back and think about this. I want you to tell me or tell yourself or write in your book, what was that one thing that you were so persistent about that drove you to doing the things that you are doing right now? Think about it. You should really write that down. It'll be very important for you. And how did that make you feel? when you actually accomplish that thing. Like, how did you feel? That's just such motivation, isn't it?
It is. And I think I remember a conversation I had with my husband when I first started working for you. And I told him, I said, one day I'm going to be the manager of that company. And he was like, oh, well, I'm sure you'll try. And I'm like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think the day that you gave me the title of manager and I actually had him on a business card, I was like, wow, now I have a next goal. I'm not done at that one. I have a next goal. I want to keep moving and growing. But once I accomplished that, I'm like, I did exactly what I set out to do. Yeah. And I did it in a very short time. And one thing I'm always so thankful for is, like you commented, I've had raises. I've never, ever came to you and asked you for a single penny.
Thank you for reminding me about that.
I've never asked for a raise ever. And I just take pride to know that you've recognized where I've come from and what I've accomplished. And I've seen the same thing here within our team is you're one of the most giving person I've ever met. And when you see the hard work of them, you always tell them, if you do right by me, I'll always do right by you.
That's right.
And you give people raises. Sometimes I'm like, are you sure? But you see it and you do it and then they grow from it. So it's really nice to work in something like that. Because not everybody has that.
Yeah.
They don't. So
but that's why I wanted to share this story with everybody, because it's a perfect example on what we're talking about here.
Right.
And it really does make a difference. So if you are a leader with us, you really need to pay attention to what your team members are doing. So this is what I usually talk to you about with the A player, the B player, and the C player. Well, Tara is an A+ player, right? And I hope that all of you can have people like that. And if you are a team member with us today, before I got into management, I had that goal. And I'm going to share this story of mine on how I became a manager on the next one, because it's about desire. And I want to share with you how I was able to step into that position, again, through the thought process, through the work. It's not just about, don't mistake me, please. I don't want you to think that all you have to do is just think it and it's going to happen. Thinking is the starting point. Then you have to apply the action to make it happen. Because you could sit here and think all day, I'm going to move this book with my mind from here to here. It's, like now we can't really do that. Maybe in the future we can. But what you need to do is get that thought process down, and then you actually apply the action.
And that's a big change. I mean, as you recall, when I met you, I was a little country girl. I mean, I changed 100% from the way I carry myself, my conversations. I mean, it takes a big change to get what you want. Yeah. It's not just a simple thought.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's a transformation, and you have to be willing to change and be flexible.
Right.
Like I remember the first time you flew.
Yes.
The first time I took her to a conference, she had never been on an airplane before.
Never.
And it was like, wow.
And you flew me to Vegas my first time. Of all the places, I kept saying I was never going to ever go to Vegas and I was never going to fly. Dori, I flew and went to Vegas all at the same time. My husband's like, wait, how? I've been married to him for like 6 years and he kept trying to get me to go to Vegas and fly and I never would.
Go.
A couple months after working with you, I did. And he
funny.
was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so for your homework, you really need to write down, when was the last time you were so persistent that nothing could stop you, right? And, again, if you watch all the sports people and all the Olympians and all that, they never give up. They never quit. They're always moving forward. All right, so that was the first story. It was about how he thought his way through partnership with Thomas Edison. The second story in Thoughts Are Things and Thoughts Are Powerful is the 3 feet from the goal. Now, this story is about quitting. It's when you give up too quickly and then you don't get what you want. Not a good idea.
Yeah, I was shocked when I read that spot. I was like, oh my gosh, it was that close.
Yeah, 3
feet,
3 feet from the goal. Yeah. So if you guys read this, then you know the story. It was about the gentleman that wanted to be part of the gold rush. So he went and started digging.
His name was Darby.
Darby, Mr. Darby, yeah. Darby Sr. and Darby Jr. So Mr. Darby got all excited and he wanted to go and be part of the gold rush, right? So they went and they started drilling and they did find the vein. And then they had to go buy more equipment because they're like, oh my gosh, we found the gold.
Right.
Let's go and start really digging. So they went, bought the equipment, started digging again. And sure enough, they were getting gold. They filled up the first car. They sent it away to get, what is it called, the smelter. And then they, all of a sudden, the vein disappeared. They're like, oh my gosh, where did it go? They started drilling some more. They drilled some more, and then they gave up. They quit. They're like, oh, okay. So they decided to go and sell all their equipment to the junk man, right? The guy that collects junk. Well, the junk man, he's smart. He went and found experts. And this is what we talk about all the time, you guys, right? So we all need an expert to guide us. So this junk man decided, I'm going to go hire an engineer. They're the experts. Let them come, tell me what the deal is, if there's really still veins of gold in these drillings. Well, sure enough, the engineer told him that yes, the gold
There was a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yes.
It was there.
The gold was only 3 feet from where the Darby brothers or man and his uncle or whatever actually stopped.
Wow.
3 feet from the gold. So the junk man became one of the wealthiest men on the planet because he used expertise. He used someone to come and tell him what is in
Instead
on
of
his
being a
fingertips,
know-it-all.
right? So it just goes to show you how important it is to truly think things through and not try to do things on your own. That's the lesson to be had here. And this is something that we talk to you guys about all the time, how important it is to seek expert advice. Now, I know we have some mastermind members on the call with us today here. They're all waving, saying hi. Hi, guys. Yes, I know. You come to me all the time. I love you too. So
I have to say, we never get tired of seeing them. I don't think I ever will.
No.
I enjoy every time I see their names and faces pop up. It just gives me like butterflies.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
So the thing that threw them off is because they were not familiar of how the veins of gold actually, so they call it the fault line, right? So they didn't realize that when they were drilling. So they just gave up. And it's so sad that, you know, you give up on something like that. That's not a good idea. So what I wanted to ask you is, when did you stop 3 feet from the gold?
That's a powerful question.
Think about that one. When did you stop 3 feet from the gold and you just gave up? So I tried to think of when was the last time I did that, and I couldn't remember. I
haven't seen you stop ever.
Yeah, I don't know if I know how to spell the word give
No.
up.
I mean, sometimes there's a conversation will come out and be like, can you do this? And I'm just like, we have tried it 100 times. Can we just say it doesn't work? But we never stop.
Yeah.
It just keep going and it works.
Trying different things for sure.
And you adjust.
And in this day and age, we call that mistakes to avoid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what mistakes are you trying to avoid? Or what mistakes are you making right now that you need to be avoiding? So think of it that way. And have you sought expert advice for helping you? You know, we come across this all the time. We meet so many people that are just starting out and they think that they can just go and do it on their own and just make the mistakes. And it amazes me sometimes, like, why would you want to do that? I don't get it. It's like if somebody tells you they have a perfect blueprint that you can take and implement, why would you say no to that? I don't get it.
No.
So that's what some people do.
And the thing is like the ones that we see do that in a couple, like 2-3 years, we're like, oh, I wonder what's happening with so-and-so. And then you look at them and you can't even find them. Like they didn't, they stopped. They quit because they couldn't fulfill what they need.
And then the other thing that I think is very important, like I remember when I left the resort, like nobody used to quit jobs like mine. I mean, I had a nice job. So, and my husband at the time was a stay-home dad, so I was the breadwinner. Charlie was about 2 or 3 years old, I think, when I quit. So Charlie's 23 now. Wow. So yeah, he must have been 3 because it's been about 20 years. And I have to tell you though, I'm going to be very transparent here with you. So when I first left, I had some money in the bank to start my own business. So I had this entrepreneurial bug. I just did not want to have a job anymore. I didn't want to answer to people anymore. I was in the man's world. You have to imagine, I was the only female vice president out of 28 in the chain of resorts that I worked at. So I would sit in meetings and they're all men. I'll be the only one. And I had to just fight so many battles. And it's just like got up to here. So I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go do my own thing. And though I ran a successful resort, right? I mean, I made the President's Club every year. I had the best team. We were just amazing, rocking and rolling. And when I went out to go on my own, though I ran a resort, but I had no idea how to run a business because at the resort, I had people. You know, I had a marketing person, I had a marketing team, forget a person. I had a finance team, I had everything. So all I had to do was meet and say, okay, you go do this, you go that. And it was that.
The ideas and then you delegated.
Right, I was done. So when I went on my own, I'm like, oh my God, what do I do now? I have no people. Where are my people?
You're like, just by yourself.
And, you know, all of a sudden I had to wear all these hats that I often tell you not to wear. But, you know, the smartest thing I did is because I knew I didn't know, I had to go out and seek the expert advice, just like he did, like the junk man did. Well, I was the junk woman. I went and sought advice. And I have to tell you, seeking advice was the best thing I did for my business because it did help me avoid a lot of costly mistakes because I was never an entrepreneur. There's a big difference between having a job and then becoming an entrepreneur, totally different. And I know we have a lot of doctors in our community and many of them may work in a hospital or work in an emergency center or they work in a medical practice and then all of a sudden they want to do a cash business. And all that is foreign stuff. You don't know these things. They don't teach you these things in medical school, nor did they teach me how to run a business in the hospitality school. I didn't know how to really run a business. And once I hired my advisor and started working with me and helping me, I have to tell you, I have not looked back, thank God. So between my drive, my thought process, my passion, my purpose, my persistence, and having somebody guide me, that's how I was able to get to where I am today.
Powerful.
Very powerful stuff, you guys. So every single thing in this book has a purpose. And this was such a great advice, I think. So what you need to do is think about what led you in the past to quit. Now, what led me to quit my job, that was a good thing, by the way. There are some things that you quit on that are bad, and there are some things that you need to be quitting. So be careful. The quitting we're talking about here shouldn't have happened. But the quitting, if you're not happy, or the quitting, if you're not getting the results that you want, means you need to do something different. So just be careful with that. So think about what is that thing. And then do you have a budget to invest in your education? Do you have a budget to have an expert come and tell you what to do? And if you do, great. If you don't, then you might want to consider, because I have to tell you, with guidance, you'll be able to reach totally different level of success.
I think that's one thing when clients first meet us all the time is we ask them, do you have a budget for your education? Because that's what it is. And they're like, huh? And you have to. I mean, for you invest so much in your education today now. And I think some people are like, oh, she's done. And I'm like, oh, no, she's not done.
No, actually, this year we raised it. I'm investing $80,000 in my education this year because the mastermind members, as a matter of fact, we're going to talk about mastermind because in this book here, that's why I did the mastermind group. But I have belonged to a mastermind group ever since I quit the resort. That's really when I started doing these different things. And I have to say, it totally changed my life. So being part of a mastermind group, getting that expert advice, all that is really very, very important. So think about these things. And again, if you want to give us some comments or ask any questions as we're going through here, feel free. We'll leave some time at the end.
Some people on social media were saying that they've had this book sitting on a shelf and they've never read it for the years that they've owned it until you said, we're going to do this. And then they started picking it up and they were like, thank you so much for making us read this book. Yeah. Like, it's powerful.
It is.
They're like, we've always looked at it on the shelf.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be their new Bible next to your book.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the next story in the book, which is about persistence. And Tara actually liked this story. So what did you like about this story? Do you remember it?
Yeah, the 50 cents.
Yeah.
With the girl asking her
so this little girl, her mom sent her
to her uncle
to get money, right? Because she needed some money. So she went he was working. Right? And all of a sudden he looked up and she was standing there. He's like, what are you doing here? Like, mama sent me to get 50 cents. Right. He's like, no, go home. Go on, go home. And she just stood there.
And he turned around and went back to work. And then when he turned around, she was still standing there.
Yeah, like, what are you doing here still? Go on, go. And she said, what?
50 cents.
Mama said, I need my 50 cents.
And they kept telling her to leave. And then she finally looked at him and said, no.
Yeah, no. My mama told me to go 50 cents. And what did he do?
He gave her 50 cents.
He reached into his pocket and gave her 50 cents. So the lesson here is?
Be persistent.
Be persistent. Never give up. So what's my famous phrase? Do you remember it? Persistence
paralyzes resistance.
Woo! Got it down. Yes, so let's repeat it. Persistence paralyzes resistance. You got to be persistent because if you're not persistent, you're not going to get what you want. You're going to give up too easily and you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities when you do that. So you got to be persistent. It's very, very important.
The story how Darby was saying he was surprised that what did this little girl do and how did she say it to make that grown man give a girl 50 cents after she said no.
Yeah.
That my mom
after
said,
he said no. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and after he told her to leave and she said, no, I'm not leaving.
That's right. She's not leaving.
Right.
I'm staying here.
She's waiting for that 50 cents.
Yeah. So we just need to be more success conscious and less failure conscious. We just cannot be thinking about that. That's not a good thing. We have to have this mental toughness. And when you have that mental toughness of keeping on, keep going, keep moving forward, then you're going to be a lot better off. And even now, like with all the things, we are all going through, it's very important to be persistent right now. And actually a good example of that is what our members are doing right now. It's amazing the level of persistence because I'm teaching them all to do new things that they've never done before. So we're really getting them to step out of the comfort zone because you have to if you want to improve, right? You guys get that. You gotta move. And when you move and you do something different and you move into the uncomfortable, because that's what it takes to improve. Right. You have to be uncomfortable, just like she was. She was so uncomfortable at first, right? Like, oh my gosh, wait, you want me to do what? You want me to talk to people?
Yeah.
Like over the phone? Oh my gosh.
It's a totally different atmosphere for me and in a different business.
Yeah. So it makes a big difference. So then the other story about persistence was what Ford wanted to do. Now,
and we're all thankful for his persistence.
Oh, no kidding. So Henry Ford wanted to build the V8. Is that what they call it? The eight-cylinder. That's a car. So he went to his engineers and said, I want you to build me an 8-cylinder motor. And they're like, that's impossible.
Right.
Forget it.
By man hands.
Yeah. They're like, no, I'm not. That's impossible. And that's where the word impossible came. Well, Henry Ford didn't know what the word impossible meant. Right. So he told them, just go ahead, keep trying. Well, but that's impossible. I don't care. Keep trying.
And Tommy didn't care how long it took.
Yeah.
He didn't care the time limit. Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And how long did it go? Like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then finally what happened? They did it. You know who that reminds me of? Is Steve Jobs. Remember when he created the iPhone and he only wanted one button? Well, now there's not even a button. But when he first launched the iPhone, Steve Jobs went to his Steve, same thing, and says, I don't care what you do. I just want one button to turn it on and off. Wow. And that's what the iPhone started with Steve Jobs' vision and what he really wanted to do. So the word impossible, I mentioned this to you earlier, should not be part of your vocabulary, because anything is possible when you set your mind to it, you decide this is what you want to do, and then just go and do it.
You're just persistent.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you think of other people, I mean, in our era, to mention a couple like Bill Gates, think about what he did. Started a company in his garage, and now he is the wealthiest man in the world, right? It's crazy. And all that started with him and his buddy, starting with one computer. And if people can do things like that, be such visionaries, and if you attach the persistence, the burning desire, and the purpose together, that's what these guys had. That's what they had. So in talking with, we've been doing a lot of meetings with our mastermind members, and I mentioned how proud I am with their persistence and what they're actually doing. It's amazing to me that the time we're going through right now, and how so many people are just like picking themselves up and then just moving forward to ensure that they're still successful even now.
I mean, they're still making money.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
They're all making money. Yeah.
And they're not doing it just by themselves. I mean, we talked to some of them just yesterday. I mean, their team has stepped up, and they were like, we didn't even know what our team was going to do. And then they were just shocked that they just showed up. Like, they're like, what's the plan? Let's attack.
Well, yeah, that's what Linda was saying yesterday, right? She's like, I'm so proud of my team because they're coming to meetings, they're learning, they're attending our classes, and just so proud. Again, that's all about drive. That's all about that burning desire to want to succeed. So maybe you can share with us a story with your burning desire, or samples of actual persistence and winning. So we would love to hear some of those stories from you.
Because I think the situation that we're in now is really going to show people how persistent they're going to be and make a difference on who they are as a human being. You know, we have some people that might just roll over and quit, and then you have the rest of them who are
I think
consistent.
the biggest thing is like not having doubt. Because when you get doubt coming into your mind, or you have this little person on your shoulder over here, you have the good person and you have the bad person, and this bad person, sometimes you need to just like knock it,
right?
Knock them out. Because we can't afford negative thoughts, frankly. Like, you really can't. And I'm going to tell you at the end how to avoid that, by the way. You're just, oh my gosh, it's already 3 o'clock.
I have to tell you, like, you're one of the most amazing, like, I feel like I'm sitting in a storytelling, like, I read the chapter, but it's like, wow, it's like really coming to life a lot more, like listening to you, because you've read this book hundreds of times, like, but it's like you're almost living the book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just in awe. Like, I feel like I'm at a storytelling.
Oh, thank you. Actually, my next story is my favorite because they can relate to it because it's about Steven Spielberg.
Oh, there you go.
And it's amazing to me what he did, talking about going after what you want. So did you guys read that one? It's amazing. So it starts really with, you are the master of your fate, right? You are the master of your fate and the captain of your soul. Oh my gosh, think about that for just a second. That's very deep. That's very deep. So what's his name? Spielberg decided, I want to go on a tour at Universal. So he gets on the tour on the little tram that takes him around to visit Universal Studios, kind of like what we have in Florida, but this was in California. And he jumps off the tram and he hides between two buildings. And then he just hangs out in the park because he's always wanted to be in movies. He always wanted to produce movies. So on the way out, he spent the entire day in the studio just floating around. And on the way out, he stops and talks to the gate guard. Hi, how you doing? Just wanted to say hi. So, and he leaves. Well, the next morning, the guard recognized him.
Oh.
And he was dressed in the suit, looking all sharp. So he thought that he was one of the interns.
Oh, wow.
So he lets him in. So this went on day after day after day, where Spielberg is actually going into Universal Studios and starts getting to know everybody, producers, actors, directors. And he even found a little office that was empty, and he actually put his name on it. Nobody knew what this guy is doing there, right? So finally, he showed one of the directors a film that he made in college. And this director really liked this film. Well, they were getting ready to publish a movie or to create a movie, but they already had a director for it. Well, this person said, okay, Steven Spielberg said, I really want to do this film. So they decided, okay, well, we'll give him the opportunity to create that film. So he did. And the film was, what was the name of that film? Something Sugar? Sugarland Express. That was the movie. So that movie actually won an award in Cannes in France, in the film festival, but it did not make a lot of money. So when he came back, though it was a good quality movie, Jaws was a book that he had read, and he wanted to create a movie out of that book. And he really had to fight to get that position. So finally he got it. And needless to say, the rest is history. I mean, think of all the successes that Spielberg has had over his lifetime, all the movies that he has done. It's crazy. But think about what he did. Think about the confidence that he had. Think about the persistence that he had to actually go out and just get what he wants. That's really what he did. He went out and got what he wanted.
And he did it well. I mean, he just fit in like they thought he belonged there.
Yeah.
When you always say you always have to aim for the job that you want. If you want to be a CEO, you need to dress like a CEO. Yeah. Whatever you want to be, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, exactly. So then he went on to create another company called DreamWorks.
They're also known for.
Yeah, and think of how wealthy Spielberg is. And had he not gone to that studio, had he been shy or not driven, did not have that burning desire, where would he be now?
I wonder what he's getting up the next day after he said bye to the guard and thought, I'm going into.
Yeah, I'm going to go back in.
Just going to walk in like nonchalant.
I'm going to go get dressed and I'm going to go in looking like I belong.
Right.
That's what he did. He looked like he belonged. So what do you want out of your life? So if Spielberg was able to do this, what can you do that maybe you're not doing right now? Or what can we even do that we're not doing right now? Well, we're getting ready to take off, let me tell you. We are gonna explode here in a little bit. We're really going global. I think our thing stopped here, but that's okay because we went over our hour. All right. So to kind of wrap things up, I know you may want to go, but we have just a couple little things I want to share with you. One is the homework, and then I want to give you a tip on how to control your thoughts. So, all right, for your homework, you've got to monitor your thoughts. That's really what I want you to do this week. I want you to really be conscious of what's going through your head. Just think about it. And when you wander off into negativity, dark alleys, whatever cobwebs start created in your head, you need to use this word. You need to say light. That's going to stop and interrupt your thought pattern. I really want you to do this. This really works. So whenever you're doing something next week or tomorrow and your mind starts wandering off into negativity or area that does not belong in your head, you need to snap your finger and say light and interrupt that thought pattern and redirect your thinking to something positive. And that's what I want you to do this next week. I think this will be a great thing for you. So just remember that word, light.
We have we should do like a TikTok movie where they're just walking around saying light, light, light,
light. Yeah,
I could just see us famous through TikTok.
That's a good idea.
Like Dori said light.
Light.
We were really, why are they saying light? Because they're from inspiration management.
Exactly. Cool. All right. So next week, we're going to talk about desire, burning desire. So that's the second chapter. So I want you to really read it. It's a little bit longer than the first chapter, so you might want to block a good maybe half an hour, so you can really digest it. I don't want you to just read it and not really digest it. You've got to. So I think if you have this version of it, it's on starting desire, the starting point of all achievements. That's what we're going to talk about. And I really would like you to share with us some stories. I know this was our first one, so we had a lot of information to put out. So any feedback, any suggestions, or things that we can even make this more exciting and more fun, let us know. We didn't give anything away today. We forgot. All right. So, hi, Brianna. How are you? Yeah. So tell us, did you like it? Give us a thumbs up, share it. And please, since this is really, I mean, yes, we're all in the med spa business and all that. But you know what? It does not matter what business you're in. This goes for any business. So if you have friends, family members, or anybody that you really want to impact their life positively, then please share this link with them and let them tap into it. Because I have to say, if you apply what's in this book, you can do whatever you want to do.
The nice thing about the book is there's so many copies of them. One day you can get the book. It's crazy. Yeah. I got a different copy of it, but I couldn't believe how many copies there were. I was just shocked. Shocked.
And I actually have a workbook too, so we'll get into
when I was
that.
Scrolling through to look at all the copies, I was like, oh, I've seen that in Dori's office. I've seen that one in Dori's office. I've seen that one in Dori's office.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Well, it was such a pleasure having you with us. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week for Desire. So we'll see you then. Have a great weekend. Stay safe and healthy. God bless. Until next time, stay inspired. Bye now. Bye.